All right, so now that I'm back, we're gonna be covering the wrapping patterns. And if we have time, I'm gonna ask you all a question. How would you guys feel if I told you I'm gonna put caustic soda or drain cleaner on your hair to make your really coily, curly hair super straight? You probably think I would be insane if I hold this up and told you I was gonna do that. But a lot of your relaxers contain the same ingredients as this product right here, Drano. So this is where we're gonna get into the really, really strong alkaline section when we cover relaxers. But before we segue into that, we're gonna talk about wrapping patterns. So now we talked about perms, processing the perm, over-processed versus under-processed, neutralization. We have to understand how we're gonna wrap the hair. So typically this is decided on after your consultation, what kind of design you want. Perm design is pretty complicated. Or I should say, it's as complicated as you make it. You can make your perm very simple, same rod, do the basic perm everywhere, or you can vary it up and do a Bricklay perm with different sizes. So there's a number of ways to do this. The book just gives you the very basic ones. There's a whole bunch of other ones out there. If you read Pivot Point's manual, you'll learn a few, and the My Lady manual. The basic permanent wrap, which is also called the straight set wrap, is a wrapping pattern in which all the rods within the panel move in the same direction and are positioned on equal size bases. All the base sections are horizontal and are the same length and width as a perm rod. So you're usually only using one size. The base control is the position of the tool in relation to the base section determined by the angle used. So for example, all wrapping them on base or half on base or off base. In the curvature permanent wrap, partings and bases radiate throughout the panels to follow the curvature of the head. This wrapping pattern uses pie-shaped base sections in the curvature areas. Typically when you're doing the curvature perm wrap, you're actually doing the spiral method with the rods, so it's a really fun way to do that. They do that in the perm redefined in the My Lady, what is it, the My Lady? Not My Lady, Studio Luma episode in the spiral perm. They also talk about the Bricklay permanent wrap, which is another very important one to know. This is similar to the actual technique of bricklaying, where if you lay bricks, you're not putting the bricks all in one same direction, you're doing brick, brick, and there might be one in between, so you're layering them in different areas. The benefit of the Bricklay wrap is you don't see those harsh lines caused if you perm with a harsh chemical. You don't see the breaks in there, you break it up. And typically with the Bricklay permanent wrap, you're also using the weave technique. So the weave technique, just like when you're highlighting, you do weaves, and weaves kind of break up the texture and they make it seem a little bit more natural. The weave will help make the lines a lot less harsher when you're wrapping. Therefore, the perm comes out looking more natural and not as artificial, which may be the look that you want. So when you're doing the Bricklay perm, you're gonna get different starting points, different dimensions. You're gonna wrap accordingly. You might have some vertical, some horizontal, and you can use it in various techniques. Now your weave technique, this uses zigzag partings to divide base areas. It could be used throughout the entire perm wrap or in only certain areas, such as a whorl or cowlick. This is very effective at blending between two perm rods, so opposite base directions. It could also be used to create a smooth transition from the rolled areas into the unrolled areas of a partial perm. The weave technique can be used in a variety of base directions, wrapping patterns, and perm rods. The next one is the double rod wrap technique, also called a piggyback wrap. And it's where extra long hair, with the piggyback wrap, what you're doing is you take the rod of the hair and with the piggyback perm, roll one rod and then you take the other one and roll a smaller one. Typically with the piggyback rod, you're gonna roll the second one in an alternate direction and stack it on top of the first rod. It's very challenging and some stylists get concerned about that little area that is not wrapped properly and you might get a bend there. So it does take a lot of practice to get that. I would say that if you want more of a wavy style, instead of doing the piggyback wrap, do a larger size flexi rod and perm on that. Know that the double rod wrap technique doubles the number of rods used. Using more rods increases the amount of curl in the finished perm, making the technique especially effective on long hair. Rods of various diameters can be used to create different effects. The double rod wrap technique can be used with a variety of base directions, wrapping patterns, and perm rods. In a spiral perm wrap, the hair is wrapped at an angle other than perpendicular to the length of the rod. This wrapping technique produces a uniform curl along the scalp to the ends. Longer and thicker hair will benefit from this. So you could either use the circle tool, that way you're not having to piggyback and it's able to get that nice texture, or use one of these and wrap it like you would a perm rod, fasten it in place and perm on this. Sometimes with these, you might have to undo them and put a little waving solution because it might not penetrate fully because of the base, whereas the plastic rods are a little bit more porous. So spiral wrapping, you can use the variety of base directions, base patterns, wrapping patterns. Sections might be, because sections may be either horizontal or vertical and do not affect the finished curl, that's why they're typically ideal. Conventional rods, bendable and soft foam rods, loop rods can all be used for this technique depending on the length of the rod and length of the hair. Partial perms are another really cool area. Now, if you're gonna use a partial perm, it's just like it suggests, like a partial highlight. You're only doing a certain part of the head. Typically, it's gonna be in here, or you might be able to perm underneath to cause some volume when you blow dry style if they have thin hair. There's different ways of doing a partial perm. It's ideal for male and female clients who have long hair on top, but short hair at the sides and nape. You can do a lot of the trendy perms. So if a guy has an undercut, you're able to perm this and give them what they call a man wave. Clients who need volume and lift in certain areas up here may benefit from a partial perm. And they are ideal for hairstyles with curls along the perimeter but smooth, sleek crown. They rely on the same techniques as above, but you're only doing one area and they might cost less. The issue with this is you want to make sure there's a smooth transition so it's not permed and then no permed. So typically what you want to do is use a larger rod for the last rod next to an unrolled section. And when you're applying the waving lotion, you're going to always use cotton. So when you're prepping someone for a perm, right? We're always using cotton when we're putting the solution on. We don't want to get waving lotion in our eyes. That's, a given. If you don't want to do it without it. I've seen people try to do that and it's a big no-no. So always, protect the client's scalp with a base cream around the hairline to prevent it from any spills. Put cotton around it, put the solution on. When you're doing the partial perm, it's important to not only put the cotton, but I would even go a step further. Take a thing of thick conditioner and apply it around the cotton, and then maybe even put some gel or something, even Vaseline. Something very thick, that way it will help prevent anything from penetrating in the hair and causing anything from going wrong. So, what else? Perms for men. The book also mentions perms for men. The techniques are the same, the chemical's the same. Perms aren't only for women, men can rock perms. There's different ways of doing them. Typically for men, you're gonna be looking to add texture, fullness, and style, something that's low maintenance. It's ideal if your client has thinning hair. They help thinner hair look fuller. They make straight hair, coarse hair more manageable, and it's all about control, and you can control cowlicks and stubborn growth patterns. So, when you're doing perms, there's a lot of safety conditions. Read through that list. A lot of it is, common sense, protective gear, be sanitary, don't get the stuff in their eye. Should you get something in their eye, always flush immediately. So know that you always want to double drape. That's important. So have the towel in case the perm gets in their skin. Know if you have any kind of irritation, you can actually get away with putting the neutralizer around the face, and that will stop some of the chemical. It'll neutralize it. You don't want to give a perm to a client that has had a reaction to a perm before. That's a given. If they had a reaction, choose like a Thio-free perm and then do a patch test, see if that reacts. If it doesn't, you can proceed. You don't want to dilute or add anything to the waving lotion, and I know this is going to sound odd because some perms actually encourage the user to put in their neutralizer, because peroxide, they would say, put one of our glossing or demi colors in there, shake it up, and you can actually color the hair and apply their hair. I thought that was always very risky. Also, some brands say you can color the same day. I'm always like, I had a coworker who used one of the bonders, and she actually did a base color and then highlights, and then she permed in the same day after highlighting and coloring, which I was like, oh, you did not just do that. So know that when you're working with all these things can go wrong. Wear gloves when applying the solution. You don't ever want to get in the habit of applying a chemical without gloves because that can hurt your hands, ruin your skin. If there is any open cuts, do not perm, because you get waving solution in there. Guess what? It's going to burn like heck. You're also going to introduce this into their bloodstream, and that can cause them to be at risk for a reaction. Anytime you inject something or get something in your bloodstream, you're always putting yourself at risk of a reaction. Remember that tip. Also, metallic salts. This is a big area where perms can go wrong. A lot of over-the-counter products, they leave a coating on the hair and they have metal. Metal is a no-no. We don't mix hair color in a metal bowl. We don't apply hair color with a metal brush. We don't mix perms in a metal bottle. We don't use metal when we're perming because it will react. I've done it once on a mannequin and see what would happen, and it reacted. It actually melted into the hair and it turned the metal like a purple color. So metal salts are more common in men's hair color, like Just for Men is a metallic dye. It's why I recommend not using it. Grecian formula is a no-no, that's lead acetate. They're called progressive dyes. The more you do metal dyes, the more they build up. If you put a relaxer over metal dye, you're gonna get extreme breakage and a lawsuit. Also, some perms, and henna is a good one. Black henna has metal. With henna, because henna coats the hair, it blocks chemicals. It will either block a relaxer or a perm. I can't even maybe say it for relaxer. It may block the relaxer, but it will definitely block the perm from going in there. And what happens is that some areas will be curled, other areas will be straight, and it looks horrific. So that's what can go wrong. Now, should you suspect anything be wrong with your hair, take a piece of their hair off if they allow you, or test curl the hair to see what happens. They tell you if you're doing the bowl test, take the hair and you mix 1 ounce of 20 volume peroxide with 20 drops of 28% ammonia. Immerse at least 20 strands of hair in the solution for 30 minutes. If metallic salts are not present, the hair will lighten and you may proceed with the service. If metallic salts are present, the hair will lighten rapidly, the solution may get hot and give off an unpleasant odor, indicating that you should not proceed with the service. So know that chemical hair relaxing, this is going to be our next section we're talking about. So we're going to segue into hair relaxers, which are a whole different ballpark. We're going to start talking about thigh relaxers first, and these are the same techniques used in perming, except you're not using rods, you're actually using a perm in a cream form. Chemical hair relaxing for your test is going to be defined as a process or service that rearranges the structure of curly hair into a straight or smooth form, right? We're relaxing it. We're taking something crazy and wild and we're making it nice and relaxed. That's how I remembered it for school. So chemical relaxing straightens curly hair. They're different in different ways. Different chemicals are used in true relaxers that are not thigh relaxers. You're using heavy metals to do the job. So know that all permanents change the shape of the hair by breaking disulfide bonds. So with a relaxer, whether it be a thigh relaxer or sodium hydroxide, you're still breaking down bonds. And that's how they're similar. So know that extremely curly hair, it can grow in coils, and they're highly elliptical, meaning that they're very springy. Also know that they're not uniform. Where straight or wavy hair is uniform in diameter, coiled hair turns and it bends, and at that bend, that's where it's the weakest, at that little bending point. So, or they call the twists. The book says a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and if you overdo it, you can break it. Know that relaxers are very alkaline and can literally melt or dissolve the hair if used incorrectly. Most relaxers contain the same ingredients used in depilatories, which we'll talk about later, and those are hair removals. They also contain the same ingredients as our lovely Drano right here. So know that thigh relaxers use the same ATG that is used in permanent waving, but at higher concentrations and at a higher pH, typically above 10, although some brands will have a Thio-free, and your Thio-free thigh relaxers, or it's a perm chemical. I don't want to make it sound too confusing. Think of like a Thio-free perm. You take that chemical, the cysteamine, and you're making it in a cream form to relax the hair or smooth it. They work a lot gentler than the regular ATG, and you're able to get more wiggle room. I've used them on colored hair, but you have to be very careful on hair that's been bleached. Thigh relaxers are thicker. They have a higher viscosity. The measurement and thickness or thinness of a liquid that affects how the fluid flows, making them more suitable for application as a relaxer. Your thigh relaxers tend to be very stinky because there's a higher concentration of thio, and your thio-free ones that they make with cysteamine, or the ammonia-free one, they actually smell like dog poop, so don't smell any better. Know that viscosity is important. It's how thick or thin a liquid is, right? Also know that thigh relaxers break bonds just like perms done, so we won't get into that too much. Know that thio neutralizer is very important. The neutralizer is usually very thick, creamy peroxide and not a liquid. And when you apply thio relaxers, what you're going to do is you shampoo the hair first, get everything cleansed from the hair. You may condition if you need to because it's such a strong pH. Comb the hair out, towel dry, make sure it's damp. You start applying. What I always do is the mid shaft, and then I scissor in. Some of them tell you to not put it on the scalp, but when you comb it, it's gonna get on the scalp. So what you do is you apply away like the instructions say, and then you comb it. You have to keep combing it. The cream will hold the hair in its nice straight shape, so it'll help keep the hair in a straight position. It's very important to keep combing and combing and combing, because the more you comb, the better. In fact, the old school way of straightening hair before we had the thigh relaxers is you would take a perm on really curly hair, saturate the hair when it was wet, and then just keep brushing and brushing and combing the hair. That fell out of favor for two reasons. One, when you have a caustic chemical on the hair like that, you don't want to be using a comb to really manipulate it too much because you can snap it. And two, it didn't always work as well because it was a liquid, so it was very hard to keep that hair down. So it did work at removing some of the curl, but it's a more old school way of doing it. A lot of our parents that are cosmetologists may have done this, or some teachers that have been around for a while will know this old method of saturating the hair with waving lotion from a bottle and just combing and combing it until it went straight. That was a precursor to the Thio. Now the Thio took over that. Know that with the application of the Thio, you apply it with a brush and bowl usually. So make sure you're following the manufacturer's instructions. Some of them might have a conditioner that you'll use. Some of them come in a variety of strengths. They'll have a weaker one for 40% highlighted hair, meaning that the hair is distributed evenly. If someone has a section of their hair bleached, they're not a good candidate for getting a Thio straightener, because if you put it everywhere, this right here is going to melt off before this here gets straight. The reason why they always say like a certain amount of hair should be highlighted before you put this chemical on, it's because that you are compensating for breakage that will occur. I had a friend who had witnessed someone do a Japanese smoother treatment, which is a Thio relaxer with the combination of a flat iron, and when they started tapping it to pull it down, they saw instant breakage. So they give you the application process of how to apply virgin Thio. Make sure you watch that video if you're going on Cengage.com. It's pretty easy to use. When you're doing retouches, you're just going to that line of demarcation and being very careful not to overlap, because that will cause breakage. Some of them leave a buffer zone. So the Japanese thermal straighteners, what these are they're also called Japanese thermal straightening and thermal reconditioning, or TR, and they combine the use of a Thio relaxer with flat ironing. When first introduced, they were called thermal ionic reconstructors. Each manufacturer has a slightly different procedure. Typically they work by doing the Thio like you normally do the Thio. So you apply the Thio like you normally would, shampoo the Thio out of the hair, then what you're gonna do is blow dry the hair in a straight position, take your flat iron, and the temperature will vary. They'll say it on the manufacturer. Tap, 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 pull it down. I do about 3 passes. Typically you wanna do it until you see the hair start giving in and looking glossy and shiny. Then after the hair is all in the straight position while it's dry, you're gonna go back in there and you're gonna apply the neutralizer. Rinse that neutralizer out and then straighten again. The issue with this service is it's very time consuming. It's going to be very expensive. I've seen salons charge upwards of $1,000 or more for the service. It could take several hours, and it's not always appropriate for some color treated hair or curly hair. They do make ones that you can use with colored hair, just lower the temperature. And here's a really cool thing when you're doing a Thio application. Now regular Thio, if you don't do the flat iron, you might get a little bit of wave left in there. You're just kind of removing some of the curl. Some of the curl may be desired. It's almost like a modern jerry curl without you having to use a rod, so you're able to put it on, remove some of the curl, and then rebond it with the neutralizer. I've done this with my cousin, who is a really cool mix of Jamaican and Egyptian, and she has the most interesting curl pattern you'll ever see. So what I did was I made this right here looser so it matched her curl pattern up here. We did it the jerry curl reinvented, and then I dried her hair on bendy rods to really create a cool texture. So with the Japanese straightening service, know that you can color, but you want to color after. And when you're working with colored hair, it's pretty cool because when you put it on, I've actually witnessed the color being pulled out and then it went right back in. It was like so scary. You knew the hair was ready when the color actually reabsorbed back in, and then I rinsed and I was like, oh my gosh, I'll have a lot of fadage. She actually didn't. That was the fun part with this. Go ahead and take your 5-minute break, and when we come back, we're gonna relax because we're gonna be talking about hydroxide relaxers.